Ryan's house. I don't have a ton of time this weekend, and next weekend there's a car show, so I got a bunch of work to do at work and things like that. So he's got some free time this weekend looking for some side work, so we're going to bring it over to him. He'll do the whole front end for me, the steering box, pitman arm, idler arm, tie rod inner and outer, ball joints, get it all set for me, and then we're going to go get some new tires for it, some white walls, probably some thinner ones, or depending on what we get left over for cash, and get a solid front wheel alignment on it so I can take it to a car show next weekend. The Rumblers, hopefully. Today's the 17th. The show's the 25th, I believe, which is next Saturday, and it's like an hour and a half from my house, so I want to get it kind of set up good and get it ready to rock and roll. So let's get it fired up. Let's get it over to Ryan's house. It's a little bit of a drive. Gotta get some gas, and my brother's gonna follow me there. I'm gonna drop it off, so let's go. I got red floor lights as well as the red headlights, which I'm not sure if you guys, I'm going to push the clutch like I'm firing up the Corvette or something. It also has front headlights that glow red, which is pretty sick. It's pretty awesome when you see it at night. Got a box of goodies for them. You can see the red lights. They're pretty cool. Actually, I'll turn my overhead lights on my house off for a second. Hang on. I just love the way it looks. It looks so cool. Obviously, I don't drive with them on, but it's so cool. I love this car. Still think my favorite thing about this car is it actually has electric windows. Gotta get some gas. His house is like 10 or 12 miles away from mine. This thing drives so much fun to drive, man. It really is. I finally put my high beams back on the floor like they were originally in 1951. It did have them on the steering column because this is like a G-body steering. We fixed that. Head into the Flats of Holyoke, the old paper city of the world. It's a beautiful old mill city. Just terrible how run down it is. Sounds awesome with open tubes. Such a cool feeling, man, sometimes, just to rip in these old cars. Although, after I put the Corvette together the other night, I took that out for a rip, and that felt really good, just to roast some gears versus cruising in an automatic. Two completely different feels between the 51 and the Corvette. And I mean, like, you know, 51 to 2000, so it's 49 years difference, and what a difference in handling and everything. But I'll tell you one thing, I do love them both, and they are both ridiculously amounts like fun to drive. Huge amounts.
I'm back in your soul just like a minister. I'm big like a movie.
When I was little, my father was famous. He was the greatest samurai in the empire.
One's over at Ryan's house. It figures today is probably like 56 or 60 degrees outside. It's chilly, and we're gonna go charge the AC up. It's June 18th, and I'm wearing a hoodie. So let's get this over to my buddy's shop. We'll put some refrigerant, vacuum it down first, put some refrigerant in it, and hopefully the C5 has air conditioning again. Almost have all this old gas gone. A little under a quarter of a tank, perfect. usually would hear a squeak by now too on the crank pulley, and I'm definitely not hearing any, so that's definitely a good sign. A little bit of an update. We have air conditioning again, ladies and gentlemen. Just leaving my friend's shop. We charged the system back up. It held vacuum. Hopefully it's good to go. The air conditioning is ice cold on the passenger and driver's side. So that's a good sign. Take it for a quick rip. We'll report back. The last part of the video you just saw is the power steering pump on the 51. I had bought a Cardone, brand new, well, remanufactured power steering box because my one that I had in this car was leaking really bad. It actually had a small crack in the cast. So I went to the parts store. I bought one last October. So I said, hey, while you're doing everything, you might as well put it in. So he puts it in, fires the car up for like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. He like bled it. You know, you turn the wheel left, you turn the wheel right, you check the fluids, this and that. Car had power steering, and all of a sudden after like maybe 5-10 minutes, the pump started to sound like that. So he called me up and he said, hey, I don't know if this car just doesn't like me, but you don't have any power steering. And let me tell you about this entire car. We're gonna get into that right now. The car really is a rat rod. So what somebody did is they did put a 69, well 67 to 69 or 68 to 74 Nova or Camaro front clip in here. It is that because the steering is behind the motor, right? The steering box is behind the crossmember of the engine. So I purchased tie rods for a 1969 Camaro. I purchased ball joints upper and lower for a 1969 Camaro. The center links for the tie rods, 69 Camaro, pitman arm, and also the idler arm. And the steering box. Well, what a treat we had trying to get that situated. I got a million phone calls. I had to run to his house like 5 different times, go to every parts store that I have around me. I have all the 3 big names plus some little guy ones. So check this out. This is the lower stock ball joint for a 69 Camaro and a 69 Camaro lower control arm. So what I actually did was just check the part number that was on the lower ball joint that was in the lower control arm, and it was a 70. So they're slightly wider, and the taper is different. And yes, I know people will say, oh, you can't run that taper, it's different for the spindle. We'll get to that in a second. I purchased wheel bearings for a 69 Camaro. Now, if you notice, my brakes face forward. Typically, with drum brakes, your caliper is back here. Doesn't matter, doesn't affect it because the bleeder's still going up for bleeding purposes. Not a big deal. No different than going in reverse and hitting the brakes. The inner wheel bearing fit. The outer one did not. These are actually S10/G body lowering spindles. There's a part number on the back. So essentially, this is the left side of the car. This is the right side spindle because the steering, like I said, is behind the engine, behind that part of the subframe. So this is actually the right side spindle. So this steering should be facing forward on the other side of the car. They swapped them to do a disc brake conversion and probably use cheap metric stuff because these things are a dime a dozen and they're dirt cheap. That would be my guess what somebody did. These ball joints are factory 69 Camaro. They were barely long enough to fit through to get a cotter pin. Actually, we had to auger out the cotter pin hole to be able to get a cotter pin in there. And they're tight. They're in there. They're not going anywhere. 69 Camaro tie rods, no issues. Those lined up. We had to drill the hole out a little bit more to get it into the spindle, but otherwise, that worked. The pitman arm's perfect, and the idler arm was perfect. Believe it or not, the ball joints that were the upper ball joints were actually the original ones from 67 to 69 because they were still pinned in there. So earlier today, before I left for work, I actually went and scooped up a brand new power steering pump. It is from a 70 Camaro. That's what the other one was. It's actually a keyway pulley, which is kind of cool. I haven't seen one of those in a very long time. Hook that up, do the bleed cycle, same thing. Not really making a ton of noise, a little bit of noise. I'm wondering if, or I wondered if like the line was kinked or the line was plugged. Took the lines off, nothing. I can blow through both of them. The pump was swirling inside. What the heck's going on? Really only 4 parts to power steering. A pressure line, a return line, your steering box, and your power steering pump, right? Well, all 3 of those are good. I'm going to go on a limb and say something let go inside here, a seal or something that's causing some sort of blockage. So I ripped that out. I called the place I bought it from and told them, hey, I bought this in like October last year. And they couldn't find my order, but then we ended up finding it because I purchased it online, found the online order number, whatever. So there's only one in the state, local to me, like within like 50 to 100 miles. So he put in for an order to have it shipped to the store that's closer to me. I think they said it'll be there tomorrow. It's like 1:40 in the morning. I just got out of work like an hour ago. So that is out. I will take that in the morning tomorrow, do the old switcheroo. If I have time before I go to work tomorrow, I'll start to put it back in the car. I also ordered the proper power steering line for this car, the pressure line. The return line is not a big deal. It's just a hose that runs underneath the cross member. But the pressure line is something that I kind of really wanted to get the correct one for this car, and I'll show you. Somebody made a power steering line. I mean, it works. It holds pressure. It worked fine in the other one. I think it does seep a little bit. But essentially, this goes in the pump, and then this runs kind of by the header, and this goes into the back of the pump. That goes into the box. This goes in the pump. So on a 69 Camaro, when you do a real conversion, you have your steering box back there. The pressure line will actually slide over and go under the cross member and come out actually under the engine. And then it has like a weird bent hard metal line, and it just screws into the back of the pump. So I ordered one of those on Amazon. It gets here on Friday, but for now, I'll just run that guy. I'm also gonna run a power steering cooler. I have a spare one from the C5 that'll probably fit or make it fit, but I did order a cheap Amazon one. But that's where we're at with this thing. So hopefully tomorrow we get it situated and get it back together. Again, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you later.